All right, so I think we're ready to go. And today we're going to learn to love solve. And so this title, I'll share a little bit of how I came by the title. But let's first of all establish that you've got the book, you've got the ebook, and you can see from that that we're talking about emotional work. And so a lot of times emotional work is not always pleasant, right? It's a challenge. It's not necessarily something we want to do. It's really a lot like working out. Am I right? so if we're it's a lot like going to the gym, and we need some extra things in place sometimes to do that work. So we get better results when we have a trainer or a coach. It's more enjoyable and supportive to work out in a community. Accountability is a key to progressing and pushing through the tough spots. Knowing others are doing similar work with similar challenges can make us feel less alone in the process. And it's nice to have others to celebrate our milestones. It's nice to have others to hear us when we're struggling. And we shift when we support others and get outside of our own stuff. All right, so thank you for being here today. You are part of something that makes a difference for you, for those close to you, and those you don't know yet. And so we're going to be talking about butterflies today. So we're going to start with a butterfly hug. So give yourself just that butterfly hug and a thank you to yourself. You can say it out loud if you want. And sometimes that's what we need, is to hear that and know that we are okay with ourselves and giving ourselves that reinforcement. So what to know on this call? So we are in presentation mode currently. So just make sure your microphone's muted. Grab a notebook and something you can write with, because you're going to be doing some writing during this presentation. And we're going to be doing a little bit of a discussion group. We might have breakout sessions depending on how many people are here, but then we'll come back and do some really powerful things at the end. So don't let me lose you in the process. Okay. And then as far as reflection exercise, so this is where you get to start writing. So if you don't have something to write on, grab it quick. I want to have you ask yourself these 3 questions. What top 3 activities or things do you gravitate toward for enjoyment or relief? How often do you keep yourself busy to avoid something, like your emotions or reality or whatever's going on in your world? Is that daily? Is that weekly? Is that monthly? What level of chaos do you experience in your life on a 1 to 10 scale? With 1 being at total peace all day long, and 10 being nerve-wracking chaos from the moment you get up till you go to bed at night. And I laugh, I can't even get through that sentence because I know it happens. And it breaks my heart when I have clients come in that tell me that's what they deal with from the moment they get up till they don't even sleep well. And so it doesn't even end. So think about that, answer those questions. If you want if you need to contact me, like sometimes I'm not able to grab the chat while I'm presenting, you can even text me and email me if you're not on the call live. So these are ways that you can connect if you're watching the recording and you want details on accessing the ebook, accessing the recording later, or you have questions for me. That's my email, and that's a text you can use. Now, I want to just a little bit about me. So I have reached thousands of people. I'm still a clinical mental health counselor and certified substance abuse counselor. I am enrolled with Quantum University in a doctoral program for natural medicine. And so that's kind of like a naturopathic degree. And so I'll be combining my mental health and naturopathic medicine together to do basically naturopathic mental health. But that's kind of the side thing, because really my focus is writing. And I have written 6 books. I have 30 years of recovery. I feel like that's significant because that has given me this foundation for what I'm writing. And let me just share a little bit. I thought these 2 testimonials were kind of fun to plug into my new website. Sherry Gaba is an LCSW licensed clinical social worker, and she was featured on a featured therapist on VH1's Celebrity Rehab, and she's the editor of Recovery Today magazine. So she gave me a review. Christine's book really got me thinking about not only how I could help my clients, but make changes in my own life. She provides genuine solutions that come from decades of research and personal investment. There's no doubt in my mind she knows her stuff. And I was pretty happy about that, to hear from her. And to know that there are other therapists out there who are in recovery and who do their work and use these tools in their life. And that has been my premise from day one. From back when I was a substance abuse counselor, and I continued that into my mental health career. Another one is Cherie Burton, and we'll get another peek at her, but she is the host of Women Seeking Wholeness. It's an amazing podcast. She's an author, speaker, and a former Mrs. Utah. And she says, one thing I like about Christine is her vast knowledge and ability to convey complex information so the layperson can understand it. I sought her out as a kindred soul on the journey to finding real solutions to mental health. I highly recommend her books. So I feel like sometimes we need to pull those up and even ask people to say, all right, how am I doing? And am I accomplishing what I'm here to do? So it's nice to get that kind of feedback. Okay, so I have also spent thousands of hours in working with clients and doing my own training and establishing my expertise. And so some of the things I've done A Course in Miracles study groups. I've done quantum meditation groups. I've led Emotions Anonymous, recovery mentoring, and I've done a lot of service in church, Girl Scouts, and all the way to Africa. And so this kind of gives you a picture of, I had this photo shoot in my practice a little over a year ago. It was a year and a half ago. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the last year and a half. A lot has changed. So back to that reflection exercise. Let me tell you, it was just over a year ago. Well, a year and a half ago, I had that photo shoot done. I had really good things happening in my business. I'd moved into this beautiful office. There's extra space. There was extra staff, and I had extra clients, and it was, it was going well. But let me tell you about me is that I gravitated towards working with people, to work in general, writing, to being in my office, to having my connections with people who came to see me as clients. And that's really where I got my wins, my, sense of what made life fulfilling and what brought me relief from depression, actually. So I've dealt with chronic depression much of my life, and having those little spiritual highs throughout a workday or throughout, my practices. But what it meant is that I was involved in 4 different service avenues. And I was definitely overwhelmed and undercompensated, and did not have the time or the energy really to spend on probably what was most important. So I was busy avoiding some things. I was busy avoiding some things that were going on in my personal life and that were really bigger than I didn't know what to do with them. And so it was easier to just kind of work with other people and things that I could manage. So the chaos in my life looked manageable, but if I sat in meditation, I felt it. And sometimes that's the only way you know that you're really not in peace. And so it was like my life was working, but certain aspects of my life were not. And if I became still and dealt with those things, then the chaos expanded. And I think some people can probably relate to that. So in August 2018, I ended up doing this event. I had spent the 3 months before that intensively working on a book. I got a book completed, and it's the Emotional Wellness Combo with EFT, the Complete Method, which is the tapping meridian technique. And I had just felt like this push. I'd completed a CD as well, an audio with guided imagery. I had, I'd done this new website, this photo shoot, all these things were coming together, and I wanted to connect to community. And I ended up at this county fair for 3 days, and I basically hit a wall. So it wasn't the best venue for that. If I were doing my meditation and really connected to my purpose and what was, highest good for me, I don't know that I would have ended up there, but it made sense logically. And so I thought, well, this is a way to interact with the community. I'll show up there. And it wasn't the way to interact with the community. It wasn't the best venue for this. And so I spent much of my 3 days doing that thing that I'd been avoiding, being with myself, sitting with my stuff, and trying to get a sense of where was I and what was I going to do about it. So from there, I started to think in terms of, what if I had a year to live? Would I do my life the way I'm doing it? And the answer was no, I would change things. And I realized one of the first things I would change was work, which was interesting. So I was also, if you see this fun little image here, during that 3 days, I was catching up on a program by Barbara DeAngelis. I mention it in the foreword of the program Solve book. And what it was is that I had to make a soul shift, and I had to go to my soul to do it. And so much of that began at that point in time. Also, I discovered Lynne McTaggart. And Lynne McTaggart released the book, The Power of Eight, in that same month. And I got a copy of the book, and I read it, and I was convinced. I was like ready. The second she put out the opportunity to create Power of Eight groups, I was ready. I was also working on my research for my thesis with Quantum University, and I decided to use principles from this. And so I began to find the power of being still. I started my first Power of Eight groups in December, and it was through those Power of Eight groups that I discovered this opportunity with Richard Paul Evans and the event that he sponsored in January of that year. So in January of 2019, it was like literally 2 weeks before the event that I enrolled, and I ended up at the Premier Author Training. And this is, the photo of that experience. And my life changed that weekend. So what it was is that my center changed. And from that center, everything followed. So what happened is that I discovered I had a center that needed more work. So that weekend, Richard Paul Evans announced and explained the principles of the 5 kingdoms. So the 5 kingdoms they begin with Kingdom 1 as the C and the D, which actually I think he's changed that now to the source. But it represents the self-aware eternal entity, which is what a lot of people would call a soul, and your source. Kingdom 2 is your family, your spouse, your children. Kingdom 3 is your friends. Kingdom 4 is your associates. And Kingdom 5 is the world. And what I realized is that I had been living with Kingdom 4 kind of where Kingdom 2 and Kingdom 1 should be. And that I was experiencing a lot of my spiritual experiences with my group, with work, with my clients, or with friends. But it wasn't as complete within myself as it could have been. So the next thing that happened is that I started using it. I started using those principles. I got the organizer, which it's beautiful. And these are rare now because there's another organizer front, but it's filled with pages, and I started using it at that point. I started also remembering and using that center in a way that I had not in 30 years of different, I had evolved in many ways over that time, spiritually, but something was unique about this. And so with my business, it ended up being a transformation that happened by May of 2019 that I realized I had not been true to what I was here to do. And I will tell you, when I was 14 years old, I stood and proclaimed that I would become an author. And it was in that moment that the muses plunged me into my story. And so for 30 years, I experienced life stuff that is now evolving into probably a dozen books. And there's so much that I have to share with the world, and I know that that's my calling. And so I got centered in it and found this purpose. And these are my memes, okay? But I use this analogy of the caterpillar. A lot of them, what the caterpillar calls the end of the world, the master calls a butterfly. My daughter read that on my Instagram yesterday, and she thought it was really cool, and she liked it. I thought that was awesome. The real purpose of spiritual practice is to get in touch with that which does not change. And there is a core center that we find in that. The people in our lives are going to be all over the place. That there is a certain amount of chaos, even within ourselves, I think sometimes with that. But there are things that when we find that center that are ours. And another one, to be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment. So I realized that even though I had these degrees and I had a staff and I had this, lease that wasn't up for another year and a half, I was done and I was released from it. As soon as I got clear on what I'm supposed to be doing, that everything in the universe conspired and God, was right there supporting me in every step. And so I was able to get out of my lease early. I was able to, give my staff 30 days to find other jobs. And I found this little room I could work in, little office, until so that there would be some piece of that career still, but it didn't consume me in any way. So it went from like a 40-hour week to a 10-hour week kind of. I was also at one of the author retreats I was at was in June 2019, and it was at Richard Paul Evans' ranch. And it was the only time he's ever done this. I don't know if he'll do it again. He calls it a peak experience. That's the only way to describe it. The incredible results from that are still playing out in my life. I have a new best friend. I have, people that I'm in a community with on a regular basis. As an author, sometimes you're an island, and so you've got to create a community. And basically he launched this Kingdom Organizer opportunity as an affiliate at that point. And so everything started to move. This is the kind of thing that he can do as an author to inspire your core self to know what it is you're here to do. So the book, Love Solve, was originally the emotional wellness EFT complete method book that I did in August of 2018. I knew that the cover didn't totally work, but it was like, I did this book in 3 months. So I did it. And sometimes you just got to do it and you put it out there and then you can revise later. So this transformation, you can see it in the book cover, and he does this for people. Incredible transformations of their book covers. But if your life is transforming in the process, that's even better. So you can see, it has the elements that work. And it was like I literally woke up in July knowing, and I had a new name. I knew that the name I was to use was Christine Ray. It just came to me, and I had a numerologist look at it, and it lines up in every way with my purpose. And so the change of the title came to me as well. And these things kind of happen when we are centered. And the other thing with that is that I woke up one day knowing my colors. Just woke up, had a dream, just woke up, and I'm like, these are my brand colors. This is my brand. And so it's been really just, it comes, and it's not a doing as much as just being, which is the way to do it, really life. So in October 2019, I had an awesome moment so something that Richard Paul Evans allowed me to do was to lead Power of 8 groups at the ranch. And we did several of them in his behalf because he was trying to finish this book in June. He finished it. He missed 4th of July and everything to get it done, but he's told me twice now that he believes that it was that intention that allowed the book to be as fabulous as it is. And so Noelle Street is out now, and I got my signed copy there with Cherie Burton. So one of the retreats I went to was hers, and it was centered around that women seeking wholeness, and it was at the Zermatt Lodge. And so all these things kind of like, I love full circles. And when you're a storyteller, full circles are awesome because you can see how it all connects. And so same place as the January writers retreat with the person and the book now in hand that, I'd gotten one of the first off the press copies of. And everything had just kind of come together in a way that I couldn't have imagined. So he does a video, and I'll share a link to that explains the concept in a real simple 3 minutes. But you can see that your source is number one. And in using the planner, that's one of the pages, every page really focuses on your kingdom one first. And you organize your life around that so that then you can do the things and connect to people in the way that has the highest potential. So, some questions to ask yourself as we go forward. And these, I want to just have you really go deep with this, all right? So we're just going to get still for a moment and just check in. Like I talked about before, that was that thing that I was avoiding. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to do that right now. So just quiet your mind, feel your heart, and ask yourself this question. What percentage of love do I feel towards myself, or do you feel towards yourself? And you'll have a number come to you. And so just notice what that is. Next question. Now so let's say your number's 75%. Looking at that other 25%, are you seeking that 25% from outside yourself? Probably. If it's not inside, you're seeking it from outside. So you're probably going to people. That's usually our number one thing. Or things and activities for comfort. And so think about that. Now that you understand the kingdoms, if 75% and you have your number is where you feel complete within that center with the love you have towards yourself, which kingdoms are you going to finish, to complete that 100%? And just be aware of that. Okay. So here's the other question. Could you increase the love you feel within and deepen your connection with your source, with God, with your Savior? Because that's the thing that you're connecting to in Kingdom 1. So what you don't have towards yourself, if it's 25% that you're missing, wouldn't that make sense? That you would go there to complete that. Okay, this is the big piece. That's what I found back in January. And this image, I don't even know who did the artwork for it, but I loved it because it's like, if you're truly connected with yourself, you find your inner child. And the connection with your source, it can be playful. It can be light. Okay. Now, the questions to continue with. Where are you pursuing happiness? Is a big question. And in doing so, are you running from depression? Are you avoiding grief? Are you spinning your wheels and getting nowhere? Are you trying to redeem the past? Make up for mistakes in your life? So if you read through the first part of Love Self, I'm basically addressing 4 of those key emotions right there, right? So as you think about that, we look at sadness, grief, okay, is one of those in the negative well. Anxiety would be that spinning your wheels. Fear based. Guilt. Oh, I didn't put anger in there, but usually we're not as driven by anger, but we could be like just at that edge
of frustration and thinking if only, something would change, then we could be happy. Many of us spend our days looking outside of ourselves for true happiness, like a treasure at the end of the rainbow. What will make me happy? Maybe I need a new outfit, a new house. What will complete me and make me happy? So when we try everything and nothing makes us happy, there's something at the core, obviously. And the question is, how can any of us feel genuine happiness in this chaos that we live in, right? Amidst the chaos. And the answer is what we saw in the kingdoms. It's basically here. It's going back to that center, back to those questions I asked earlier, is where are we going to try to complete that percentage, that missing piece? So anywhere we're going is going to actually create chaos internally, and it's going to create those emotions because we're going to be fear-based, or we're going to experience grief because we don't get that need met through our spouse or through our family. And so basically that's what I learned. That's what I learned from the last year and a half, is that the grief I was experiencing was because, Kingdom 2 didn't fill in Kingdom 1. It just didn't work. And neither did Kingdom 4. And that's actually where I was going to a lot, to try to fill in Kingdom 2, which I thought would fill in Kingdom 1. And so it never worked out because all those answers had to come from the internal Kingdom 1. So, okay, so look at what's in your well. Because if you're experiencing, like I said, those 4 negative emotions in your life, most likely it's because of some expectation, and here's the thing that's really important. If you're experiencing any of those things in Kingdom 1 with yourself or with God, that's the first place to go to start cleanup and to start basically solving the love. So if you look at the positive well, that's what we're trying to get to. We start at the bottom of the positive well with what are we responsible for? What are our intentions? We work through empathy, forgiveness, gratitude, and acceptance, and arrive at love. And it sounds simple, but if you've done your work, if you've been doing the writing, you'll see there's a lot that moves through you energetically. There's so much to process with that. So it's the first section of that love solve is to work through these wells, and to do it with whoever in your life you feel those negative emotions toward. But really consider if it comes back to Kingdom 1, to how you're feeling about yourself or how you're feeling towards God. Because there's some power in that if you can find it. All right. So now I want to do a discussion, and we will break up in groups if we want. But and if you're watching this as a recording, make sure to, use an opportunity to work with others to do this, and look at joining the program I'll be offering. So this right for today is to just go back to these original questions, the top 3 activities and things you're doing, your go-tos, and if you're avoiding things, and if you're experiencing chaos. Also answer the question, what's in jeopardy if this pattern doesn't change? Oh, good. Everybody's back. Just curious, was that helpful? Kind of fun to interact?
Yeah, that was.
That's good? Okay, I love those. And so, but any feedback on that? Anyone wants to share? Oh, yeah, Diana.
I'm also using that Kingdoms program, and I've noticed that with it, my chaos levels have changed. So I used to be a 10. I'll wake up and be so fragmented and crazy, and it just happened all day long for me. But I think I can honestly say I'm probably closer to like a 4 now.
Awesome.
I'm better at balancing the things I need to get done, though I am still recognizing that I am avoiding things. So this has been a good activity.
Yeah, and you've been using the organizer for 2 months?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then, we talked about what's in jeopardy if the pattern doesn't change. We agreed that it was our relationships with ourselves and others that really that's what's in jeopardy.
Thank you. That's it. When I walk people through their addictions, we come full circle with that. So usually what somebody goes to, like if they're, whatever they reach for, they're doing it to resolve something, to create a response. And that's the thing that they're trying to resolve is the thing that that's what's at risk. So for example, anxiety, if we, look for the wrong thing to manage our anxiety, we will ultimately have more anxiety. So the same idea. So what you're finding is by going to the people in your life that, to avoid being with yourself or resolving what's core, you have risk of losing the people in your life. Right? Yeah, that was huge. Thank you for sharing that. More or less, that negative well
represents the caterpillar, okay? The positive well represents the butterfly. Oh, yeah, it was. So we can live in caterpillar world or we can live in butterfly world. and this is so powerful. The other thing is that the caterpillar represents the ego. The butterfly represents love. Okay. So everyone, this is from A Course in Miracles. If some of you have a background in this that worked with me. But everyone identifies himself with his thought system, and every thought system, or you could say emotional wells, centers on what you believe you are. If the center of the thought system is true, only truth, order extends from it. But if a lie is at its center, chaos or deception, that's what proceeds from it. The way out of conflict between two opposing thought systems is clearly to choose one and relinquish the other. You can't live in both wells. You who identify with your ego cannot believe God loves you, but the kingdom of heaven is you. So the ego is what makes up that percentage, probably, that wasn't true love within yourself. And that's what basically it could take whatever it takes to release that, because the ego thinks it's going to die, and it will. The ego is the caterpillar. Okay. So the kingdom of heaven is you. You are the butterfly. What else but you did the Creator create? And what else but you is his kingdom? Leave the sins of the ego to me. That is what the atonement is for. Let God resolve this. Because as caterpillar or butterfly, we have a model: crucifixion, resurrection. What the caterpillar calls the end of the world, the master calls a butterfly. Richard Bach. Okay, 3-minute video. You guys are, it's so cool.
If you want to look at a pattern that's playing itself out on this planet right now that would give us insight about what is going on.
So all the cells have jobs. The caterpillar's growing. If you were in there and a reporter, you look around going, yeah, the economy is going great guns. It's growing every day. Everybody's working, full employment. This is the kind of thing we love to see. How much are we growing every day? Some percent every day.
And then the caterpillar reaches a certain stage of growth. And at that stage of growth, it just stops eating. It can't take in anymore at this point. It's reaching a maximum size. There's no energy, and all the systems start laying off cells. And pretty soon, there's massive chaos under the skin of a caterpillar. Why? The systems stop growing, the cells are out of work, nothing is evolving, and the thing is falling apart. If you were a cell in that caterpillar body at that time, you would look around and say, oh my God, our world is coming to an end. And yet, in the midst of those billions of cells,
in among them are other cells genetically identical to them. No different. But they think differently. They respond to the signals differently.
These cells have the interesting name called imaginal cells. And these imaginal cells come up with new visions. And what happens is, in the midst of all this chaos, when all the other cells are running around thinking the end of the world is coming, The new imaginal cells are laying out new ideas, new visions, a new plan, a new scheme, a new way of life. And around these ideas, the cells reorganize and they start to create new massive organizations to create something much more fabulous than the previous system. A system that is much more sustainable, a system with a higher level of evolution. And that system they're constructing called the butterfly. So there's a transition from an old world of caterpillar with an old belief system and an old way of life that was no longer sustainable.
And therefore, you have two choices in this world right now. You can retain your caterpillar status and go, oh my God, the sky is falling, and be in fear. Or you can say, the caterpillar is going, I want to build the butterfly. Why? Because if I become active and, positive in the process of building the butterfly, I'm engaged, I'm working, we're creating the future. If I sit there and bemoan the loss of the caterpillar, then I'm making myself sick and everything around me. Why? I'm not contributing to our evolution. And so, where are we? We're at the demise of the caterpillar stage of civilization and the rise of the butterfly.
So it's amazing. Basically, our society is in this same dilemma, so to speak. It can either live in ego or it can evolve into butterfly programs. When people do quantum meditation together, it allows the power that is our potential to magnify, and we connect. All these things happen at the same time, and miracles happen. Butterflies happen. And so these experiences will be ultimately what we have is living in the positive well. And so we need each other. We need each other. And this work that we're doing, when we do it together, and especially when we do it with this added element that I found through the group meditation, it's basically a quantum model, which, through all of my training with Quantum University, I'm understanding that Bruce